the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome everybody to the October 21st work session, 9:30 a.m. here at Town Hall. I asked the Secretary Treasurer Ed Warner to do the roll call.
Scott Horowitz.
I am present.
Present. Richard T. Marin.
Here.
Joe McLaughlin.
Present.
And Matt Parsons. Here. We're all present.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, Trustee Marin, you have a discussion on for Mill Pond, and I see some folks are here from Mill Pond.
Yeah.
We got some of our most experienced Mill Ponders here today.
Are we going to open this up for discussion with these guys? Cause
We are.
There's 3 seats and there's 3 members of Mill Pond.
I think they should come up here and
Yeah.
we'll have a conversation. Who's ever coming up? You part of Mill Pond discussion?
Kristen is.
I'm not officially part of it.
Yeah, but
You want to talk about Mill Pond, right?
You're very well vested in that pond.
You're part of Mill Pond, stakeholder, right? Come have a seat if you want.
Hi, I'm
Morning.
from Artie Muller's granddaughter. Very nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Can you just sign in on the?
Everybody's got to sign in, state your names clearly for the record, and we'll have a good discussion on Mill Pond. You can talk while they're signing.
Okay. All right. So there was a little bit of confusion with communication with Solitude Lake Management because they had some personnel change-ups, and I guess a confusion of actually who's running the program, whether it be the trustees or LCAC. But anyway, we got that all straightened out, and I told him, I says, look, if you don't catch much in here, it's going to be on you, because Ed and I both were under this, we said hold off till after Thanksgiving because of water quality issues. But there was a lack of communication, and I told them what I thought about that, and we straightened it out. And I said, if you don't catch anything, it's, I don't know where we're going to go from here, because, it's pretty expensive cost doing this.
Right.
So, it was a good mistake.
Mistake for them to do
It was a
now.
good mistake because what happened when we went in there, and Solitude sent their A-gamer for the electro fishing. Okay, this is a guy who knows what he's doing, and it was a blessing that I got down there because I spent 10 years chasing carp in Mecox proper. Okay, seining, so I know what their what their patterns are this time of year, and we had a very good conversation with the guy running the electro fishing boat, and I went down there and he had about a day and a half of fishing on it. I'm like, how many did you get? And he says, I probably got like 120 fish. I'm like, what size? Then the slot size was this, okay, like 12 to 18 inches. So that means we have a biomass of carp, all the same size. So we have a run of carp in there that the last time you guys were in there were 8 to 12.
Yep.
So it's
Same carp.
the same carp. Okay, so that was a good thing. All right. They weren't putting up any numbers at all whatsoever. I was like, "Are they buried in the bushes?" He's like, "Absolutely not." He's like, "It's just what's in here." So I says, "All right. Well, this is a good problem. Okay. It means we got a really good biological. Like, there's not even enough carp in that pond to tag." Okay, and do the process by which we were going to tag the fish, get a biological assessment, and then do trapping methods. And I think it's an extreme waste of resource to continue chasing these carp. That being said, we also had some very interesting biological data coming up of what actually is in the pond as far as other fish, okay? And there's not a lot of food in that place. That's why there's not a lot of largemouth bass. There's very few gizzard shad in there. He said they're all very tiny. There's very few sunnies in there. There's a decent biomass of eels in there, which is probably what a lot of they're pretty aggressive. So I said, all right, we got to change course now. Now we gained it a season. by having this electrofishing, because I'm like, okay, this is out. We're not chasing carp. And then it was good because the fellow that was there that's been working directly for the Trimarine, about the Trimarine project. I don't know if you guys, that's the amendment that we've been speaking about, that bonds an oxygen molecule.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And injects it in.
Oh, this is the new
This is the
process.
new, like, so they gave me the name now.
Okay.
So Christopher Gobler is working on that amendment currently up west. I think it's Broom Lake. I don't quote me on that name because it was all coming pretty quickly to me. Tremendous success in one season. Okay. And I says, all right, well, Southampton Town has historically done a lot of pilot projects. Like why don't we take this one on? He says, I have to speak with Christopher Gobler. We have to see what the DEC, where the DEC is at as far as this amendment. And my understanding is because that amendment doesn't necessarily target the algae, it's going to be a lot easier to permit. Because if it was targeting the algae, it would be a long, drawn-out permit process, whereby this amendment is targeting basically the muck in the bottom of Mill Pond or any other lake in the state of New York. So I think personally, and obviously I haven't really spoken to the rest of the board about this, is that we change tack. They're gonna still put the sunnies in there as nestrators. He said there was very few, as he was electrofishing, I was like, can you give me a brief synopsis of, volumetrically what's in there? And he says there was very few sunnies in there. So Tuesday they are going to bring the sunnies in. We are, they haven't given me I told them I want a full breakdown of this episode so that I can bring it to the board and discuss everything. They said that one of the major issues in that pond is there's not much structure. Okay, there's not much structure for fish to kind of hide and not be consumed by predators. So I'm like, well, are we throwing all these sunnies in there as fish food? Or he says he doesn't think for this season, but it's something that we do have to discuss further, but I don't have the data yet. Okay. So the long and the short of it is the head fisheries biologist that is working with Gobler up west had a very long discussion with Christopher Gobler, and I says, how do we fast track this? How do we make this happen within a short amount of time? Because we did not have a huge green algae bloom in there either this year. It was a short stint. It wasn't as drawn out as it has been in the past. So, and when I saw the pictures, he gave me the chronological pictures of, and this was on his phone, of what Broom Lake looks like up west, and it was astounding. It was like crystal clear water this time of year. So we basically need people who have connections with the DEC that are shakers and movers to try and push this process forward, whereby we can use this amendment in Mill Pond. And this is going to be a lot bigger project, because this is a lot bigger volumetric mass of water body
As compared
to their test site up west. The bonus is this has been used down south a lot and had extreme success in Georgia and South Carolina and a couple other states where the permitting process isn't quite as drawn out. So that's what I got.
Okay. So I'm Bob Macris, for those of you who don't know me. Well, I think this is good news because A, there are not the number of carp that we thought might have been present. B, there's an extraordinarily promising new process, Trimarine, is that what it's now called?
It's going to be an I or a Y?
Why?
A Y, T-R-Y. So how expensive is the Trimarine process? Did they give you a number?
I met with these guys Thursday at Mill Pond as they're playing with the boat. So this is all.
So there was a substantial amount of money allocated for the carp harvest.
Yeah.
So now we can move that money to this. So that's good. As far as the DEC is concerned, I know Jay Schneiderman is extraordinarily concerned about
I have a call
Wilcox
in with him.
Bay,
He just called me now.
and I know he would be on board for
Yeah.
this.
And Gobler and him are involved in the Mecox
Yeah, exactly.
project.
And
So
Thursday night, there's
I think
a
we
discussion.
kind of like utilize
Right.
both water bodies are
Right.
pretty important to each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's good. Now, as far as the fish habitat, Chris Pickerel has been, as you know, doing a pilot project, and he's very enthusiastic about expanding that, which would provide the cover for the fish to hide. And he was putting together a proposal, or he is putting together a proposal. So I think he'll bring that to you guys, and if that's approved, then you'll have the vegetative protective habitat, and then we can move forward on the Tri-Marine. And I think we're moving in the right direction. So I'm pleased to hear what you've said.
And then I also wanted to address your concerns with the carp that are in Mill Creek, or the tea room as I call it, to the south of the bridge. Okay, and we did that the fish ladder, the what's it called? The design process for a possible fish ladder has been approved, and the money has been allocated, and we've chosen an outfit to possibly design the fish ladder. This is still very worrisome for me of opening up a fish ladder to Mill Creek now that we know there's very few carp in Mill Pond. And do we really want to open up that possibility of migration? A lot, because there's a lot of carp in Mecox.
Okay.
So this is, and then also Ed just brought to my attention that there's somebody that's been running fikes in Mecox, and they did run across blue catfish, which are highly evasive, predatory species. Right. That I don't know if we want to open that up right now.
Agreed. I think we should put that on hold because it would be a disaster if all of a sudden.
The design process is still in the pipeline because it was like some people on the Watermill CAC were still in favor, and some people on the Board of Trustees were still in favor, and we had money that was allocated already, like a contract. But I just want that out there because anybody who goes over and looks over on the bridge and says, "Oh my God, like look at that biomass of carp,"
right, okay.
And we're spending a lot of money here for a closed system. Might be
right
more beneficial.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I mean, there's also through vetting the process from the three contractors that we were looking at for the process of putting the fish ladder in there. One of them had a proposal that would have a mechanism that would not allow any, fish like a carp or a larger fish in there. Would just let the LYs and the glass eels in there. So there are mechanisms that we can use, and we also have to weigh that if we have a large infusion of LYs in there, being that they're going to spawn in there and there's going to be a very large biomass of little fish. Chip said it. There's very little food in there, so you're going to have a natural food source for the largemouth bass and the other fish to eat. So we're going to have to go through the process as far as how the design of the fish ladder, look at it, and we're going to have to make a decision whether we want to open it up for the LYs. I mean, if it's placed there and we open it up and we realize the carp is still getting in there, then we can always close the fish ladder off. I mean, it's something. It's like it could be pretty much like a gate. But I was always of the understanding that that place was starved for food, and that's why I was always a proponent of getting the LYs in there.
Okay.
And by getting the LYs in there, it's going to basically complete the first full circle of their life cycle, which they go out to the Atlantic Ocean, they come back in. This will give us a good talking point to keep Mecox Inlet open certain times of year, especially in the springtime when it needs the fish migrating in to go to Mill Pond and then up to spawn. And also when they go to leave, they're going to leave here in maybe the end of the summer or October, so they're going to go back out to their process. So if we need a talking point or a narrative to open up Mecox Inlet, and that we get pushback, as we know we have in the past from the permitting agencies, we're going to say, well, this is an endangered species and blah 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 blah, that we need to assure that they go back and fulfill their life cycle.
So I assume that fish ladders are not a new technology, and
No, they're not.
there have this, as you said, this blockage for bigger fish must have been tested. I mean, how
Yeah, this is all in the design process,
Yes.
so this so we'll find out.
Which when we get the process finalized, we could present it to the CAC and everybody else.
And the fisheries biologist from David Beasley, when we first started discussing the possibility of a fish ladder, was very pro fish ladder, because he felt that the LOI's process, whereby they go in and come out, was also going to draw a lot of nutrients out of the pond.
Right.
Because they're filter feed,
Right.
So he's like, this could be a beneficial process whereby we're removing a lot of that nitrogen and phosphorus from the pond, because the fish consume it and then they exit
Right.
and then they leave.
Right.
So I mean, there is a lot at play here, but our concern now is primarily the carp, and then fast tracking this trimarine process. So.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a big
Yeah.
push on fish ladders and restoring that habitat, but I
Right.
think
And
you
the
got,
and the LOIs migrate at the same time the plovers are here. So it's like, which endangered species are we more concerned about? Like, there's a little bit at play.
well, there's a lot at play. Yeah, and this has been going on for a long time, and I think that with all of this information that's coming to light, I think we have to take a very wide approach of what it is that we do here, what the next steps are, so that we can move into successful. This is all good information that's coming to the table.
So why don't you get an opinion from the engineering experts as to the confidence level of keeping carp out with the design?
That's what the
then-
whole process is about.
That's the whole process is going to be about. And we've come a long ways from solar bees to where we are now. I mean, we've had solar bees, and then we've had, the Deerfield Road, the storm remediation, the best practices of the farmers applying their, chemicals and fertilizers on their fields. So I think we've come a long way, and I think it's starting to pay dividends, especially when Chip was talking about the, duration of the blue-green algae which occurred this year. I mean, we had massive amounts of rain over the winter, early spring, and early summer, which was going to make me believe that we're going to get a lot of runoff and a lot of nutrients, but that really didn't happen. So maybe we have started to push the bad water back and nutrients. So.
Right.
I'd like to ask a question about the Steve Abramson, by the way. I haven't met you before. I've met Joe, and we're old buddies to the rest. But the new technologies, this is really the first time that I'm hearing anything about what it is. Are there any papers written on this that we can look up and read?
Yeah, there's
Can you send
substantial data.
Can you send us a link to some of this so that we can
Yeah.
bone up on it?
Yeah, and it's been first time they've given me the name, because they were trying to trademark it. And one of the head fisheries managers of Solitude has that was part of the communication breakdown, is he was in mode of working for Trimarine. So he left Solitude and is now working for Trimarine to try and fast track the process of, kind of integrating it into Solitude's management practice.
So Trimarine is
Is the
the
name of
company
the-
or trademark or
Yeah, I don't,
or whatever this process
like I
is.
said, I was on the dock talking fast with a lot of guys, and I was trying to okay, we got to change course. So
Right.
there's going to be a lot of this information trickling in this next couple of weeks of what our next, and I will update you as such, but I wanted to bring you guys in there because we had a work session just after this episode. So, because I know you guys are kind of answering, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I'm just like, all right, let's tell you guys what we have found, what our plans are, and so you guys have time to talk with your respective people, and also find somebody who can also communicate with higher ups in the DEC to say, look, we want this as a test project. It's very fruitful in other states. Unfortunately, the Department of Environmental Conservation is pretty extensive with their permit process in comparison to a lot of other states. So that's where we're at. And that's why it's good that Christopher Gobler is already testing this first season up west with very good data. coming from it.
Which lake is that? Did he say?
I want to say Broom Lake or something like that, but I like I said, this was all firing to
We'll
me.
get you all the information for a narrative, so when you contact the DEC.
We also need that information too, so that we can
Well,
handle,
yeah.
we need to do at this level as well. So when we get it, so that this board can review it, we'll certainly share it with you.
When we sat here, when Fred was on the board and we worked for the with the Foslock project, there was information that was given us, and I felt comfortable initially doing the project, but once the project got up and running and the town board basically said they weren't going to supply any more money, and I felt like that project got broken and the information wasn't forthcoming in a way that we could all read it and understand it. I think if we're going to do a new project like Tri-Marine, I think we want to have the information so that everybody in the public can understand it, because we're using CPF money. And we have to reach out to the town board and educate them also, because they're the ones who basically hold the purse string to this. I mean, if they feel that this project is something that's going to be kind of sketchy or not comfortable as far as them endorsing it, I would, it's not going to go anywhere. So we want to make sure we get all the right information and really present it with Chris Goebel leading, and Chris Pickrell leading, the charge basically, as basically giving them information and the understanding how the project will work.
May I just ask a question about the funding? Because we do have a substantial amount of funding that was allocated for CARP. Is that going to
Yeah, there's a very good possibility.
go away,
yeah.
or can we keep that
No,
money?
there's a very good possibility, and I believe the contract, James isn't here, but I believe we left it open-ended for that.
I
Yeah.
think we had an escape route. If something doesn't work or we see a change in course, which we're looking at right now, that we could pursue that.
I believe,
Okay,
And,
so
and that's why I wanted a bond with Solitude,
Right.
and not do all these like flash fires. I
Right,
wanted
right.
one
Okay.
organization.
I believe that amount of money is sequestered, obviously, for this project. It's
Okay.
just, if we're gonna be changing aspects of the project, I think we need to, obviously get all the
We
information.
have to have a narrative to support
And be official with that in terms of, because you're talking about public monies.
Right, of
Be
course.
official with how that's handled, so we'll do.
And that's
dot the
why-
i's
Yeah, my
and
only
cross the
concern
t's.
is that now we get stuck in another budget
no,
process.
I don't
want-
No,
No.
because that money's already sequestered,
Right.
but you have a presentation and you have certain philosophies that are part of the project that, you want everybody to be on board with to
Yeah.
the
And
discussion.
that's
of
why
the-
when Ed and I first discussed with Solitude, and we were both very adamant that becomes a very systematic approach and not just throwing one idea or another idea. That this becomes like originally with the CARP, this is like with their tagging process that we were going to go for in the spring, we would have a biological assessment of how many carp are actually in the pond. Well, as it turns out, there's not even enough carp to tag
Right.
for 600 carp. I think they maybe put up 170 carp.
Right.
This whole fishing process. So, yeah.
What about all the carp that died off the last week of September? Was that taken into consideration?
Those are
at all?
gizzard shad. Okay,
Even the large fish.
those
that
were
we
all
removed? Okay.
gizzard shad because I did go look at
We
them.
did remove quite a bit of fish prior to Tommy's wedding because we
I'm
didn't
aware
want
of
it to
those
smell.
That would make sense.
But I will say with that when the guy was electrofishing, because I asked directly about how many shad were actually in there, and he says 99% of them were about that big.
Yeah.
So
Excuse me, a lot of hope and expectations are riding on the new technology. When will Chris Gobler produce a report on whatever lake he's working on, so that we know that we have a handle on something that's valid here?
that's going to be a discussion I have with Lake Solitude over the next couple of weeks.
That's an excellent question, because that's what we need as well,
Yeah.
because we don't have.
We can't make a
we-
move without it.
We don't have, this board doesn't have the information that it
But I
needs.
know it was a one season trial, and then Chris was going to compile the data and give it to the DEC.
And the primary effect is to bond and neutralize phosphorus?
And nitrogen. It's
Oh.
very similar process by which if you have an anoxic compost pile that hasn't been stirred in a long time, and you go and you mix a compost pile so you can inject oxygen into it, and then the process of breakdown can happen again. It's the same concept with Trimarine. So Trimarine will basically take an oxygen molecule from the water column and bond it into the substrate. Now, the difference between this product and Foslock is Foslock was only able to take about like a half an inch of the top.
Yeah.
But when you have this much muck in a lake, that really doesn't do much.
Right.
Whereas this is able to inject it down in lower into the muck and intensely break that down so the muck layer can disappear.
This discussion is going to lead to other discussions is what's going to happen here, because folks are going to have to come in to be able to answer these technical type questions and speak to that.
Yeah,
So,
I'll just,
follow-up questions, but I'll hold
one thing,
Yeah,
when Solitude had made the initial presentation to you guys, they were talking about a two-step process, which
Yeah.
was initially removing carp and then doing the
Yeah.
then unnamed
Unnamed.
secret process, because they had a high degree of confidence, and it's not just based on what Chris Gobler's doing, but there was in fact a project somewhere in the south that they alluded to
Mhm.
where they had very good results. So
They
to-
figured it was
in-
going to be a
in-
2-year process.
In their mind,
Yeah.
I think it was, a proven but
Yeah.
unknown technology. So they had recommended that as the second step. So in essence, what
We're
I'm
bypassing.
hearing here is that we've now jumped ahead of the first step because there are no carps, and now we're focusing on that second step that they had in fact recommended 6 months
And they thought
ago.
it was going to be a 2-year process.
Right.
By
Exactly.
the time they had the DEC's
Right.
approval and
So
all
now
that.
we
But
need to now we need to
but there's a
fast
very
track
fine possibility that we might become part of the process by which more discovery is made.
that. Right. Yeah.
If that's what the board
Right.
and
well, more pilot oriented.
Yeah.
Become more part of the pilot.
as long
more
as
the test.
everybody's on board with
Right.
it, like as long as
And-
the Southampton town board's on board with it,
Yeah.
this board's on board with it, you guys are on board
Right.
with it.
No, I think it makes a great deal of sense, and given that we have had a test case in the South, promising results with Chris Gobler, we would be more than happy, I think, to make Mill Pond a test case.
Well, like I
Because
said,
we
we need
want
to
to
tap-
clear Mill Pond up, so this is, this seems to be the panacea.
Well,
4 years going to be a template for all the rest of the lakes and ponds in the town.
Right.
So, and I've
Yeah.
said that in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, look what they're throwing at Lake Agawam over there with the respirator and sucking all the algae out, and we don't know if that's going to work. I mean, they say it's going to work. So
Right.
you got two very different projects
Right,
on
exactly.
doing the same type of remediation on the same type of algae. So
Right.
hopefully ours works
Yes.
quicker
Yes.
and more efficient, because I think putting a giant vacuum on a lake or pond, to me, doesn't seem to be financially viable in any of the other ponds. Maybe in Agawam, because you have a lot of money there.
Right.
But I mean, they're going to try it, and we've supported that too. So I mean, we're throwing all the science that we have at these problems to get them remediated.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate all your efforts and your support on this project. So
Yeah.
no doubt, thank you.
And I'd like to add that you guys really should be credited for willingness to try something new to do things.
Exactly.
It's necessary to do a little bit of experimentation for this, because there is no proven technique across the country for solving this problem. Nothing has surfaced for that yet. One lingering point, though, was with Princeton Hydro, which I think was a very credible organization too, although difficult in some management areas. They had focused on the need to eliminate phosphorus as the primary limiting nutrient for algal blooms, and at least for cyanobacteria for sure. And so the idea with Phoslock was to lock up the phosphorus so that it was not bioavailable. If you stir up the bottom and if you're loosening everything in the muck, one caution would possibly be that Gobler will have to address is what happens when you release nitrogen and phosphorus into the water column if you're not fixing it with this technology. So I would. So there's a lot to be learned here.
absolutely.
Even before you pull the
Absolutely.
trigger.
Yeah,
think
we're not
pull the
even
trigger.
close to pulling the
Looking
trigger.
at that aspect, I would like to see the project done in the wintertime when the lake is kind of dormant, and then when you expose all of this nutrients and put it in a plume, and pond, that it gets absorbed in, whether it goes to air stripping or however it works, that by the time spring and summer comes around, where you have the, algae outbreaks, that everything is taken care of somewhat. I mean, I
And
guess.
this is, we're all getting hypothetical
I know.
here because we don't have enough data.
Like I said, this
Yeah.
discussion is just gonna lead to
Yeah.
other discussions because we don't have all the information.
So
And
one
we still
question,
have,
Ted-
legacy water. Do we still have legacy water to cope with in all of our water bodies? So we can address this issue of the layer of muck, but we still have water that's,
Right.
in the tea room, it's 90 years old, 6 inches down.
Right.
So you have 90-year-old water that you're coping with, So
Yeah.
even if it's like water from the 70s, we got a long ways to go and a lot of understanding of how to cope with this upland water.
I think that's one of the things the Princeton Hydro Report
Yeah,
stated, was that
yeah.
a good part of the intake of nutrients was from the groundwater that
Yeah.
you're not gonna get rid of. I mean,
But we could address the pond right
Right.
now, and then hopefully with all these, further grants and understanding and test wells and everything else, we can see what we can start doing with the legacy water because it's going to be an issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And a question I think to also ask is, maybe, just thinking aloud, a combination of something like Foslock with Trimarine. I mean, perhaps,
Yeah, this is
I mean,
beyond me. Yeah.
because I
You get
think
into
that
permitting and
Solitude
everything
had
else.
also
Yeah.
said something about that if you had a minimal application yearly of something like Foslock, without a great deal of money being spent on it, that would be a mitigation that, would sort of, I mean, it's a Band-Aid in a sense, but you doing it on a yearly basis would take out a lot of that incoming.
Unfortunately, it's probably like when you try and heal your own body. There's a period by which you have a Herkimer reflex. You have a response that is not going to be good in order to heal. It's like chemo. Kind of like there's a period where in order to really heal the problem, you're going to have a little bit of turmoil for a year. I don't know. This is obviously going to be from Gobler's findings. I was very impressed with the minimal understanding I had in 15 minutes. So, like you said, we need more data,
Right.
and then we're going to proceed in a systematic approach, like we did with this one. Not.
I would say stay tuned for discussion part
Yeah.
2.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, perfect.
Yeah.
There's also, actually, if I could just pop in real quick, I'm going to be meeting with some people from Nature Conservancy. They also are doing a pilot project in Sands Point Preserve. There's a lot of interest in this kind of muck bioremediation. So at some point, something's going to show up that's going to work, and work cost effectively too. So it's even all our eggs aren't necessarily in Solitude's basket at this point either.
Right.
So it's just nice to know that there's a lot of interest in this.
I remember, apropos your point, that some years back, Pio Lombardo, who was an limnologist who was relied upon by East Hampton, had recommended putting in piping at the bottom in the muck that would be perforated and it would draw out under low pressure. That water would ultimately be used and pumped out, and perhaps could be used on adjacent farmland or open fields
Fertilizer, sure.
because it's nutrient laden. So it would provide
Fertigation.
pretty good fertilization for lawns or et cetera, and get it out that way. So there are a number of things still to be looked at potentially. and
Absolutely.
as Bob suggested, maybe in combo.
Right.
But
Yeah,
thank
it's
you
good.
for your
Thank you for your collaboration.
So I'll, or Steve or I will contact Chris to get a proposal to you guys on the vegetation, and as you get information regarding Trimarine, if you can forward it to us.
See what
that would
happens.
be
Look at
great.
the Sunnies are going in Tuesday.
Yeah, okay. And likewise, any information vis-a-vis the fish ladder and keeping out the carp, we'd appreciate that.
I talked to Chip about this. I had an idea as far as habitat for the sunnies. I mean, once Christmas happens and we have hundreds of Christmas trees, you basically could chain them all together and sink them in the pond and make a reef out of them. And then you'd have, they should last.
That was a recommendation of Solitude.
Yeah,
Christmas
really?
trees,
Okay.
I would say probably 5 or 6 years life of them. So if you do them every year, a few every year, and put them in a specific area, you can make a nice reef for habitat for them and for other fish too.
is there any discussion about what has happened in the last, okay, so just full disclosure, in my lifetime, I was able to bathe, swim, everything in that pond, so, and I'm not that old. What has happened to make it so that there is no longer this habitat for these fish? Because as I go around in a rowboat or a canoe, it doesn't seem as though most of the shoreline has changed drastically. So what are we losing there that is affecting the habitat for the fish so badly?
That particularly I don't know, because I'm not too familiar with what type of vegetation it would. I mean, there's lily pads in there, probably types of, some years there might be widgeon grass in there, but I mean, I haven't been in there in
The
years.
main part of the pond has been pretty clear of any type of growth from the bottom up.
Okay.
Plants in my lifetime. You know,
Okay.
the coves always were very, very laden with, you know, you learned at a very young age that you pull the motor up as soon as you hit the lily pads. You know, I do look across at the island that doesn't have much vegetation on it anymore, that was full of vegetation as a child, we could walk on there. So as we do remediate these things and bring in fresh fish, what is going to keep them there? And besides maybe this Christmas tree plan, like how are we going to bring back this habitat for the fish?
I think that's a good discussion for Solitude to see
Yeah.
and Chris Pickerel. I think it would be good to have a discussion with Chris Pickerel and Solitude of what biological substrate is going to.
I mean, the muck has always been there.
Yeah.
You know that you don't touch the bottom once you leave Grandpa's area. We would have muck fights. We would build things on the dock.
It's a lot of
muck.
potato.
You know, it's not as if the muck layer is new. I'm sure that it's holding much more things that we have brought into our environment in the last 50 or so years. But, you know, a lot of these issues that I'm hearing all of you guys talk about have been issues for my whole life. So why are they causing such a problem now, I guess, is my concern. Are we going to fix something and spend a lot of money fixing something if it isn't in fact the issue?
Well, that's why we're, you know, treading very lightly
Yeah.
here. That's why there's been a lot of solutions thrown at these water bodies, you know, whether it's Agawam, whether it's Mill Pond, and you're trying to figure out what combination is going to work. Apparently, there's no silver bullet.
Yeah, no.
Okay, and you know, Chip's talking about you still have inflow of water coming in everywhere, and the discussion about permeable reactive barriers in areas that kind of, you know, help things. So I think what has to happen is you got to get all of this around the table and figure out what's going to work in what areas and what combination is going to work. And nobody seems to have that combination yet, and that's what we're trying to all boil down, where it's great that you came in to sit here and give us this and the knowledge that you have here at the table. Because with the new technologies and all of the experts that we have, local knowledge as well, perhaps we can get there. You know, we're talking about being a template or a pilot, you know, and that's what we've always been trying to do with this. Just trial and error. It does get expensive and it gets frustrating when you try things that fail. You know, the Foxlock thing, God bless.
Excuse me, thank you.
You know, where, you know, perhaps mathematical calculations weren't dosed correctly and then we didn't follow through for whatever reason that, you know, the town board at the time, because, you know, these things are dynamic, they change. And but this science and all the knowledge needs to carry on so that we learn from the prior, you know, mistakes or trials that were not so successful. And now as you're like even going back to Fosslock, where people are like, well, maybe if we do this and we do this. So we're all, you know, trying to learn, even the people that are at the highest levels of having the schooling and the knowledge on this, and we're on it.
The people that we're dealing with, I mean, professionals that are outside of the Southampton area, I mean, now I'm throwing a family member under the bus here, but, you know, up until the 50s, we had a large area of wetlands around there that was dredged and is no longer behaving like the wetland that it did for centuries and centuries and centuries before that. Is that ever part of this discussion of how that has affected the rest of the life in Mill Pond? You are all aware that Corwith Park was dredged and made a channel and was actually, okay.
Yeah.
So all of that wetlands that was used, and that's where the 7 ponds filtered into
Yeah,
Mill
right.
Pond. you know, how has that affected how things are processed through that? I mean, Uncle
Right. I mean,
Blair's
it's a
long
good
gone,
point.
So he's not gonna get mad at me for talking
Yeah, I mean,
about this, but, you know, that was
it-
something that was done.
It's a good point, and like almost every land use decision that was made in the upland is affecting our waterways, and then you got to roll these things back decades and decades and decades. And I think we're all now looking backwards, where we're working on, you know, better septic systems and better practices on the lawns and farming and so on, because all of this influx has created this problem. So now we're trying to move things, you know, in the other direction. And we're finding out in some of these areas it's not as easy as it seems. But we're all learning from this,
Absolutely.
which is why you're not
Yeah.
permitting new bulkheading, and
Yeah.
you're protecting wetlands, and you're you know, it's a whole different thought process. But when you're trying to unwind it, especially in people's lifetime, it's
Yeah.
it's like turning a very large ship in a very narrow channel.
Yes.
But I think that, and I've been involved with this dating back to even when I was on conservation board. When you talk about Foslock, and I've been trustee for 11 years, there's always been this steady focus of trying to get everybody around the table and find some solution for this water body, to the credit of the community, in my view, you know, collaborating with a open-minded board to try and figure out what to do. And I think here we are now with some new technologies being brought to the table, combined with a lot of trial and error, and now you have, you know, a very healthy CPF fund that has the ability to fund these things for water quality. I think it's important that we dot all the I's, cross all the T's, do the best job that we can on vetting these projects, and get everybody's head in the game, and perhaps we'll resolve this issue. But I think the key is, as I've learned for anything to do, especially in government, which moves at a glacial pace, is you need to stay focused on, you know, resolving things that are important. And we've done that, and we'll just keep doing that. So those are good points.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yes.
All right.
All right,
Stand
so
by.
we'll keep
Yeah.
in touch. Thank you.
Part two.
Part two. Part 12.
Part
Yeah.
27.
Part two of this discussion, the new technology discussion. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, Pat.
All right, so let's move right along from a very, very excellent conversation to the general permit applications for determination. I have Taplow Consulting Limited for Karen Scarmazzino at 12 Tarpon Road, East Quogue. Is there anybody here representing this application, 12 Tarpon? 12 is replacing 75 linear feet of an existing bulkhead. They want to do it with vinyl. They want to go across the entire lot. This is a Shinnecock Shores property. They want to do a return on the south side of the property line where the new bulkhead is meeting the existing. The new bulkhead will be higher than the existing one by 16 inches, resulting in 30 cubic yards of adding backfill. Land with the bulkhead with a 10-foot buffer.
What are the elevations of the surrounding?
Well, this one we've worked on before, right, Charlotte? This one, what we did was they came in asking for a higher, and we asked them to match the adjoining.
Okay.
And this one, they have adjusted their property to do exactly what the board has requested. This would be consistent with what we have done. When it first came before the board, it was not, but it's been amended to be consistent.
Okay.
And it is a good idea to have the return. And you can see that
Yeah.
it's in desperate need.
Yeah, it's gonna-
So this is one that they came in and we asked them to adjust, and they've adjusted to what our recommendations were. So,
Yeah.
based on that, I think it's okay. You good?
Okay.
They have stamp plans. Okay. I do have, I see Aram is here for Penniman's Point Limited Partnership, 36 Sicken Neck. You are up.
Morning.
Good morning. You had a very good morning this morning, right?
Got the sunrise.
Just a refresh on this project. This is a catwalk off Penniman's Point in a semi-coved area, and we were talking about the property lines and how they intersect, and I offered to put together a sketch showing they're utilizing a method called the PI method, which was from a case called Erico versus Weinstein, which I provided to council. And so this is the sketch.
Thank
And so what we did was this is called the Round Lake Pie method. And I recall President Horowitz says he liked pie, so.
I do like pie. Pizza pie, blueberry pie.
So we applied the Round Lake Pie method, and we plotted on there the results of an equitable manner how these two different properties can get to the water, and the red lines are the two docks of the two properties. So I think that the concern of the board was that any decision that it made here would be consistent with the equitable arrangements as defined in the Blue Book, and I think that this method accomplishes it.
So this docks into the pot, into the center
I
of
think so, because I'd like
the
to,
pie.
I'd like to, just make sure we differentiate. It makes sense what you say. I just think we need to just differentiate and be clear relative to the permitting of this, and I'd like council's input so that it's clear on the permit, if we move forward with it.
I had an opportunity to review the information that Aaron suggested the board look at. He also provided another reference piece from the state of New York, which I thank him for. I went over the proposal with James, and it is the equitable way to do
The
it.
environmental analyst.
Yeah, so I would say that the relief that they're seeking in the manner in which they're seeking it is proper.
Right. So just, I just want to make sure that you reference that in the permitting, we move forward, right? That way we don't create future headaches for the
Yeah.
board.
And just for the record, there are about 5 different ways you can calculate riparian rights, and geography really has a bearing on which one you would apply. And in this case, pie is.
Okay.
We all like pie.
Okay, see, I like it for, pie had me at hello.
Well, it doesn't look like the proposed dock is gonna interfere with the other dock's navigation, so I mean, that's usually a prerequisite as a checkbox for us to, look, if you're gonna build a dock and it's gonna interfere with navigation, well, then we have to revisit it, but it looks like there's enough property, enough area for this to work, because they're fairly large pieces of
And the
property.
neighboring property already has a marine structure on it,
Yes.
so it's not going to interfere with their
Right.
use of
Yep.
that structure
I
at
just-
all.
Yeah, my concern is always on the legal side of it, that there's justification and it doesn't create a future headache for the board moving forward, that this is a unique
Yep.
It is the equitable.
situation. Yeah, so just as long as that's plainly stated, we can advance.
Okay.
There's no objection from my fellow board
And
members.
I'll get you engineering plans.
That'd be great.
Great, thanks very much. Also, great conversation about, no comment. Enjoyed that.
Why don't you just stay right there, Aaron, because I
Okay.
think you have a vitreous for 1517.
Well, it's me, 11 Pine Tree.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you Billy.
we're gonna get Billy from First Coastal. That's all right.
Brought the whole team today.
Happy birthday, second Phil. Billy Mack, First Coastal, everybody.
Morning, Bill.
We had worked on this one several months ago.
Yeah, this is, which one is it?
11 Pine Tree?
11 Pine
Is that
Tree, yes.
wooded lot?
Yes, this, you guys wanted to see the DEC permit, which we sent, and, it's consistent with what we're requesting from you guys.
Yeah.
I
This was
think
the
there
low
was-
sill bulkhead with
Yeah.
this rock upland.
Yeah, I think you just wanted to confirm that the DEC was fine with the low sill bulkhead, and they were, that's the same plan.
Thank you. Looks good to me. Good.
Same plan, yeah,
Okay, so
thank you.
pending stamp plans, you have others here, which you have, trustee Warner has
Yes.
Barry Seymour.
Barry Seymour,
Barry
10
Seymour.
Sun Court.
Yeah, we heard that 2 meetings ago.
Yes.
And what we did is we realigned the wall with the outer edges of the adjacent bulkheads.
Okay, yeah.
So the west side, the east side protruded out by about a foot.
Yes.
We pulled that in on the west side, so now everything's very linear.
Yeah, okay.
So I
So we have revised plans.
Yeah.
So you
I
good
have
with
a
that
note
now?
here, it needs to be revised by Joe and signed by both parties. Is this?
Yeah, you can forward that off to us and we'll get it to, Mr. Seymour.
The sand agreement has to be amended.
You gotta
Yeah,
come up here, Jim.
Yeah,
Okay.
He signed the first one, so.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so you're,
Thank you, yeah, thank you.
okay, so then you also,
41 million.
41 Noyak, Orkin, Gonal.
Okay, this is a dock at the, pretty much the dead end of New York Creek. You want to bring up an aerial. Well, nice, thank you, yes, you can see, this is the only property without a dock, and we proposed it in a spot that seems to be out of everybody's way and gives him 2.5 feet of water. So, it is very compliant, the way we're proposing it. And here's a,
Oh, I see you have the pier line basically with the other adjacent dock.
yeah. And it, you know, we're starting, on the, kind of the left side of the property, or right side of the property, walking out to the water, and then we're jogging it over to more of the center line of the property. To get us, because that's his closest lawn line, so we don't have to go through the wetlands as much. And then we're pretty much centered on the property, the floating dock.
Yeah.
And it hits the 2.5 feet right at that line.
This isn't going to disturb the navigation of the other docks. It could be on.
It's the only one I
You
thought
have that
it-
one there that's a
yeah.
little bit of a.
It's nestled into the corner, that's why we kind of tried to keep this far to the western
North,
side
yeah.
and the northern side. But oddly, it's relatively deep down at that.
Not comfortable?
it's been dredged.
Yeah.
Years
Right.
ago.
Not comfortable?
I mean, they did get it to the center line of the property. He's trying to tag the 2.5 feet. I see that there is a decent tuck in where it was dredged at one time.
Yeah.
You know, that one like
Yeah.
that one
the
cut in.
elbow. Oh, yeah.
The
But
pier.
that's where it gets tight too.
Yeah, the pier line is a little bit skewed because it's not kind of parallel with the property.
Right.
You know, like if you were to go parallel with the shoreline, that pier line would push you in quite a bit. So that's a little bit of a skewed observation as far as the pier line. You know, the dotted
Oh,
line.
yeah,
You know what I
I see
mean?
what
Like
you're
you're not
saying.
really
Yeah,
going
yeah.
parallel with the property.
Right.
You're following the dredge
Yeah.
Yeah.
water body,
Yeah.
The 2.5 feet, sure.
Yeah.
2.5 feet.
the topography of the bottom.
I mean, if you push that dock in further,
Yeah, my only concern
yeah,
about that.
then you're going to pinch the guy even more.
Exactly.
You know,
And you
this
can
guy has
see-
enough room to go in and swing and utilize his dock. Whereas if you
Yeah.
move that any more
It's, yeah, we're up to that pipe.
to the
thing, yeah.
east, if you went to the east more, that's just going to make it more of a tight
Yeah.
mess in there. So
Yeah, you can see that ramp and float, and
Yeah.
it's a seasonal, so whenever that was done, that float actually sticks out into the bay, so that's a very tight corner. So we wanted to give that space.
but I mean, he is the only guy on the creek without a dock.
So you wanna maintain consistency with that?
Yeah, I think he's got it right to the dredge mark.
Yeah, and any further, east would be too tight.
Do you know if we have permitted another dock here that was never put in
On this stretch,
on this location?
on this property,
Yes.
oh, I don't know, no.
Are you recalling something?
I recall something. I think the scenario was what we were talking about.
Same
was
owner,
saying-
different owner?
I think it was a different owner.
Do we have anything in the record, Charlotte, for this, or no?
There's nothing digitally.
She didn't see anything.
Yeah.
You'd be thinking
we-
something
we-
else,
And
similar?
the guy that
12.
bought it has owned it for not, I don't know, maybe 5 or 10 years, but he said that the previous owner didn't do anything.
Okay.
But,
It must have been the
you know,
adjoining property then.
Something similar?
Yeah, I remember the area down there we had discussed. Very similar to what we're discussing on this property then.
Yeah, the dredging helped out a lot.
Yeah, it did. Yep.
You wanna hold it a cycle till you're comfortable, or? you-
I'm comfortable. with
I
it.
think it's,
Yeah.
you know,
I think it's the best spot for that dock.
and it meets all the,
Yeah. It meets all the
requirements.
requirements. You've kind of hit everything.
Yeah, it's, shoehorned it in there, but it works.
I'm fine with it. I
I'm
didn't
good to
advance it.
move it ahead. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
and I think
All we got.
that's all you got.
Yeah, we will let
All
you
right.
guys be.
All right, so let's go back up to mine. I got Richard Romano, 9 Highland Drive in Hampton Bays.
Thanks again.
Thank you. This is shoreline bulkheading. I don't see anybody here for shoreline bulkheading, but this is remove and replace 188 feet of bulkhead. Same location and height, 2 6-foot returns. They're gonna remove an existing brick patio, boardwalks, and 2 drop-down boxes. They propose a 10-foot sand buffer landward of the bulkhead and all timber to be tropical, non-treated hardwood. So this project's fine, in my opinion. Anybody else have any issue with this?
No.
It's a standard,
It's pretty cut and dry.
cut and dry. I would advance this one pending plants, okay, and then Edward? All right, I have, application, for, 12 Barrel Place, Southampton, shoreline bulkheading. I do have a few questions on the, project. First off, we have a survey here, of, Shinnecock, the site with no Shinnecock Beach Road on it. Do you see Shinnecock Beach Road on the survey?
I do not. I think this one should be held for when they're here, because
Yes,
they're
yeah.
not here. 'Cause
Well,
that's clearly an issue.
I have a whole, like a laundry list.
Let's just put this one right on hold.
All right, okay. Because,
That's
yeah,
going right on hold,
Yeah,
because
we-
there's no sense in us, that's a important requisite right there.
well,
that
that
we just-
and the situation of where this, how to site the proposed dock, making sure that there's vehicular pass and repass and egress in the area. So that
Let's
there's-
hold that for representation.
Yes, okay.
I think that's all you have. I think we're going to trustee Marin.
Yeah, 3955 and 3991.
That's Ed Consultants.
She was just here.
Either that or we'll go to, where's it, Gina?
Well, she's already got it.
She's, is she? No? Okay,
She'll be back.
all right, because she's got a lot. So, Gina, you have one thing. Come on up, Gina. DKR Shores, 90 Island Creek Road. It's trustee McLaughlin.
Yes. This is a continuation of what we've.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You guys have to, do your.
Remember this one? Yeah. Planting.
Gina Rigdon, DKR Shores, here to represent them. This is a continuation, from August,
Yeah, it was
19.
a few months ago, yes.
Yeah.
Wow, time flies.
I know, right? So at the time, the board asked me to foil the old records, which I did. There's no minutes because it was only a work session. So I sent you a video. It was the last project on with a couple of comments. I was also asked to prepare a landscape plan, which I did. Basic, very simple, and that's it. If you want to look at it. combination of grasses and, added shrubs, like ground sedge and some switchgrass, which is sort of bigger
Good.
grass, that grows higher.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Go, yeah,
Okay.
You okay with that?
it's a long time coming, so.
Yep. You good, Matt? Okay.
This is just a landscape plan. I didn't actually prepare a bulkhead plan because it's work done. So it's only some bushes.
So we do as-built fees for that, or what? How's that work?
Dude, does the as-built need to have stamp plans of the existing
It does.
structure? Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
Alright, I'll have to have someone, go
Yeah,
in
so
and
you
do
need,
some
you need.
drawings.
You,
yeah,
you need stamp plans if
stamp
you're doing an
plans
as-built.
For the existing structure,
Okay.
regardless of what was there.
Okay,
All right, so we'll, pending stamp plans.
do you wanna hold it or just pen?
No, just,
Pen
Yeah,
where it's
pending
finished?
plans is fine. Well,
What-
Scott,
What do you wanna do?
we can approve that.
Approve it pending the stamp plans.
Okay.
So it can't go anywhere until all the requirements are met.
It'll just, I'm catching up with just getting out of vacation, so it's gonna take me just a couple months.
Vacation? I didn't approve
I
that.
went coyote hunting in
I
Canada.
didn't approve that. That didn't cross my
Yeah,
desk.
as long as that planting schedules with, and
Yeah.
and adjusted with the cover sheet and all that.
Yeah,
Okay.
stamp plans for the
Yeah.
as-built
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'll do a basic, measurements and get it over to the architect. Okay. Alright,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you
Take
very
care,
much.
guys.
Now that we have Suzanne from N Consultants, we were looking for you. All right. I didn't, yeah, sorry. We got you now. You have a lot on you.
So, do you wanna start with Zeltner and McHugh?
Yes, work our way
Okay.
down. How about that?
So these two properties are right next to each other. Bulkhead replacement. I met trustee Moran at the property a couple weeks ago. We talked about the fact that we would probably want to raise them. I was proposing them in place and kind at the same elevation, but we're talking about the fact that it might be good to raise it 6 inches, raise them both. They're both pretty low relative to the grade, just by a few inches. So I'm going to revise the plans to show that.
Okay.
On the McHugh and Rizzo property, which is 3991 Noyak Road, the dock is a little unconventional.
It's a little hokey.
Yeah. So I talked to the homeowners.
So just before we shift gears, so 3955, we're gonna hold.
No, we gotta go through both of these. They're kind of like a combined project, but we're
Yeah.
not,
They
like,
are.
there's a lot of like nuances.
It's
that-
the same contractor.
the
They're
same
adjacent.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we keep it all straight for the
No, we
record.
will
and
be
stuff.
all straight,
Okay.
but there's items with each piece of property that we kind of have to go over in
Right,
detail.
so I think both will be raised 6 inches relative to the existing elevation. On the 3991 Noyak Road, you'll notice that the dock is not built to traditional standards. It does have permits back from 1984. I talked to the owners, their sisters, McHugh and Rizzo. Their parents built the dock back in the 80s. And obviously it's wider, like has this sort of triangular platform at the beginning, which they're perfectly willing to cut back. They're like, yeah, people did things differently back then. They didn't always pay as much attention to the permits. But the sisters really want to bring it into compliance. So when we looked at it, you could just, the decking is cantilevered beyond the 4 feet. The pilings are at 4 feet wide.
All the pilings are legit, and there's an add-on outside. Charlotte, do you have the pictures that I emailed you to this property?
I have some right here.
So if they wanna get the whole thing into compliance, is what you're saying, basically, at the end of the.
Yeah, so this picture's not great, but you can see they would just cut it.
Oh, the ones, yeah, I guess the ones that I emailed you concerning this
Oh,
piece
they-
of property kind of didn't
But that's the adjacent one.
make
So
it.
spanning. Oh, I see, they're out beyond.
Yeah.
Well,
They're gonna cut this back, they're gonna take it
Jess
back,
has
cause
it
they're
in
shading more than we permitted them to shade.
No one ever, even in the 80s, no one was approving a dock more
Right, so they're gonna cut that all back?
Yes.
They're gonna cut that at back, and they're gonna cut that little wing where the dock box is.
Yes, there's a little box, that's the neighbor, but,
What is the depth of water where the float is?
I don't know, the dock wasn't really part of the application. I mean, it does have a trustee's permit from 1984.
Okay, here's the pictures that I took of the property.
Oh, yeah,
So
it's
that dock box has gotta go.
Yep.
And then
That's
you see
gotta
it-
go.
You see the
Yep.
the V, so.
Good.
This is a nothing right there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the,
Sorry. It's the next thing.
So we're gonna cut that back and bring that into
Okay.
compliance. I think it can literally just be cut. They may need to replace the decking, actually. I don't know if it makes sense to just literally cut it, because I think it's from.
That's up to you guys. I hate to throw away good wood, but that's just me. Where are we at with all the decking on the bulkhead?
The walkway that's landward of the bulkhead, I talked to them about that, they said they absolutely would not mind cutting it back. There's an area about 40-50 feet that's, covered in phragmites on the seaward side of the bulkhead, so that's not really, they can't access the water there anyway, so they're willing to cut that back. And we talked about cutting back about 10 feet on the, west side as well, because there's a tree there. And they would wanna just work around, I think it's a maple tree, that's about 5 feet from the bulkhead. So no need to have a structure there. So right now, we had proposed 155 feet of wood walkway, that would be, reduced to about 100 feet.
you can even cut it back more, I mean, because it's, at low tide, there's like no water there. And you have an access to the dock, with the docks, I mean, I don't see, like 20 or 30 feet of decking would be adequate for kayak and storage on the upland. I mean, more than that is like really kind of like just, I don't think it's necessary. That's my personal opinion.
Well, how does the rest of the board feel? The sisters are willing to be, flexible.
I mean, what do they need? I mean,
Just to walk along the bulkhead, if you're throwing a fishing line or something, access,
I think
put your
it's
cooler down while you're.
I mean, it's 5 foot, currently as it stands, it's 5 foot, so then there'd be a 5 foot buffer behind that walkway.
yeah, it's a good buffer. I mean,
Yeah, but 100 feet of, that's a lot.
Yeah, I thought that too, Ed, but honestly, when I got down there and looked at the property, the way it's kind of like.
I mean, if they're gonna do a good 5 foot buffer behind it, yeah, really good one,
Mitigation.
And it would be non-treated wood, of course.
Yeah.
How did you make out with the other neighbor with
No, it's not
losing the
offending.
10 foot on their
for
side?
that area, so.
They're
They're
fine with
they're
that.
gonna raise it,
You're gonna lose it over here by the tree, you're gonna lose it from this point
right,
back,
and
so.
she's doing 5 foot behind it, and you're
And then
raising it
both
6
neighbors are
inches to
gonna
kind
lose
of
it.
help with,
Both neighbors are going to lose a 10 foot on either side on the between the two properties.
Okay,
I asked that there be kind of a buffer there as well.
okay, so we're requiring more drainage and stuff like that.
yeah, I think all in all, I think it's a good project.
And what did you propose to them as the actual buffer for 5 foot? What species of grass?
Right now, I have proposed, just beach grass. But if you'd like to see something else,
Well, beach. I mean, that's always the most affordable.
it's the most
Yeah.
affordable and it's easy to get established.
That's, yes, if it gets established and it
Salt
stays,
tolerable.
I think that's the key, and it does its job, I think that would be good.
And we did permits a year or two ago for the property beyond them to the north.
Yeah.
And that's beach grass and that's come in pretty,
Really well,
pretty strong, yeah.
so, I mean, it sounds to me like it's okay.
I think it's fine as long as we have the 10 foot between the two properties where the
Yeah.
jog was, where that return was.
Okay,
I would like to see some
10
kind of
feet.
grounds of bush there or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah,
we can add grounds of bush between the
between the
two.
two
On the
properties.
We're gonna
ends.
give them a little buffer from each
Gives
other.
buffer
as well.
from each other, and I think it's also a good way to kind of like just delineate that as
Break it up.
natural space,
Yeah.
and then the 50 foot on the other side. That's on the where the bulrushes were.
On the Zeltman property,
Yeah.
yeah. So we
What-
can take off the
What,
DT
what
there as
type
well.
of material are you gonna use for the boardwalk behind the bulkhead?
Non-treated wood,
Yeah, and it's gonna pitch towards the upland, not towards the bay, right?
yes.
Because I see it's slightly pitched here. at
Well, we're
least.
gonna raise it 6 inches because the grade of the lawn right now is like even with the,
So you,
so I said, let's raise it up 6 inches
That's
so
the-
that we have
All right,
some.
okay, that'll work.
it'll be a better design project.
Right.
So Charlotte, do you have this all straight?
Yeah.
So are we holding this?
Let's hold it until you have the
I'll tweak the
finalized
plan.
plans, and then we see the planting schedule. We see that, like you have the decking that's removed.
Right.
That's current.
Let's go one more round of hold on
Yeah.
both of these, and this way we can clean up some of these, and then it'll take some
And
pressure
we
off the
didn't-
office.
We didn't get that beautiful picture of the pipe going in from Southampton town. Yeah, that was.
Sometimes
kind of
I take my
upsetting.
pictures just.
There's
But
a
that's-
nice 18-inch pipe about
Culvert.
this big coming straight off Noyak Road where everything kind of conjoins and goes right into
It's,
the bay.
it's right at the spot
Yeah.
where Noyak Road takes that hard turn to the
Yeah.
left, and there's the market on the opposite side
Yeah.
of the street.
So we're doing all our good upland remediation, and then we have a drain pipe straight from Noyak Road going into the bay.
Well,
Yeah.
And coming up the hill, all the way up.
Oh, it's got
For
everything
miles.
coming down right
For
there,
miles
for
around.
miles and miles.
It's so
Anyway.
frustrating when we spend so much time talking about 6 inches here, and what are we gonna plant here, and then you see a pipe like that just.
So,
dumped.
does it come
Right.
through this bulkhead or
No,
the
it comes
neighboring?
through the adjacent neighbor's bulkhead,
It's
right
on
in
the
the corner.
Zeltner, it's on the Zeltner property.
Yeah. Oh, it is on the Zeltner
Yeah,
property, but
it's-
that bulkhead was replaced with the
Right,
other
it's-
bulkhead project.
Oh.
Where you see that little planted buffer there,
Yeah,
which is actually grown in better than when that picture was taken. Right in that corner,
Yeah.
there's, if you zoom out a little bit, you can see where Noyak Road is.
yeah.
Just,
Yeah, that's the pipe right there.
yeah, it shoots out right there.
That's why
Yeah,
it's
it's
in-
huge.
That's why it's uncertified.
What?
That's why it's all uncertified down there.
Okay, so I'll make those tweaks to the plan and to both plans and get those back as soon as possible.
That'd be good. So you also have,
Two on mine.
yeah, I see that.
Let me grab-
Millstone and,
Yes, bring both of them,
Rentals.
knock them out.
Sue Hodges, 279 Millstone Brook Road. You guys looked at this at a previous
We
meeting.
did, yes.
And I think the comment was to switch up the plantings to Baccharis on the landward side instead of the Spartina that I was
Is that
proposing.
what you showing, Charlotte, note-wise? The notes you have consistent with what Suzanne is talking about?
So this is an erosion control project. Previously, they had done coconut fiber rolls in the exact same location. It hasn't worked. They disintegrated. There's still an erosion problem. So now proposing some stone in the same spot with plantings. And it's just that one corner. It's a 50-foot stretch there at the end of the Dove Canal.
Yeah, this is where we discussed like the riprap basically.
Yeah.
Right, so it would be like it would be an extension of the tiny bit of riprap that's in the corner there.
Do you have a picture of the planting schedule?
I'm just proposing Baccharis, cross-section here, 2 foot on center.
Yeah.
You good?
Well, if we don't do something, it's all gonna end up in the bay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over time.
So you,
And it's
the house.
close to that house.
You're right.
Including the house.
Are you all right?
I know.
You okay?
You good with it, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So if that one could be advanced, we'll,
Yeah.
we'll get it stamped.
Okay.
Hold it back.
15 Rebadan.
Yeah, on Barry, I think that your board had been okay with the previously submitted plans. We were just waiting for stamped engineered plans. But I procrastinated on that because I hadn't heard anything back from the DEC. And the DEC responded that they wanted to see it, the proposed structure not extend as far out into the waterway there. So, they did not want more than 25%, so it did the math and revised the plan by shortening the catwalk by 10 feet and rotating the float 90 degrees so that it doesn't extend as far. But we're getting to 2 feet of water and chalking it, which is what the DEC said they would approve. And they've issued their permit at this point. So,
Yes.
What's what are you have the hydro? You wanna look at that, Eddie?
yeah, they have an existing floating dock, which was permitted. But I guess there's been a lot of accumulation of soil in that area because the dock that was in deeper water is now the existing dock, which is that square, non-conforming right there, right? That's to be removed. That's currently in basically no water.
Yeah, and it's over the extended
Yeah.
property line.
Right.
So how long is it, where, 2 feet of water? These numbers here.
It's really hard to.
He's got the best eyes out of all of us, I think.
1, 2, 2, 2. Yeah, there is deeper water way offshore, I mean, but
They're not gonna go for it. That's not gonna work.
It's not gonna work. I mean,
No.
there's only a few docks beyond it, which is why I originally had it out about 15 feet farther. But, I think rotating it to the T shape helps. That way you're not extending as far, but you're still,
So how are you gonna chalk it? Are you gonna use, 4 pilings?
4x4s, yeah.
With, yeah,
4x4 is attached to each of the
yeah,
piles.
and it's gonna be a seasonal removable dock?
Correct.
I mean,
Seasonal removable, I would say it's
I'm
okay.
looking, I drive by this all the time and I see all these floats along the bulkhead there, and in a winter's low tide, it's like 20 feet of dry,
Yeah.
sand.
And I don't, it looks like it needs to be dredged to me. I don't know how the college is right across. That's the
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
right.
was dredged because I fish in here, and when you come past the college, there's a big flat, and then all of a sudden it gets deeper way up in the headwater there. And you're literally, if you put the dock out further where it is deeper, then people aren't gonna, up above to the north, their little channel, they're not gonna be able to navigate out.
Right, and that's why we pulled it back.
Yeah.
I'm trying to meet all the criteria, and it's almost impossible. So this, I think, is the best possible layout for the situation.
And I hope they realize they're not gonna put a 40-foot boat there.
No, I mean, right now, their dock is sitting in no water. I think
I've
it's
seen
not a boat.
docks we've approved with 34 and 38-foot boats on them now. It's like, you people don't understand. Well, anyhow,
Well, you can't regulate,
yeah.
Well,
boat size.
No, you can't.
Where are we at with this?
I mean, it technically would work when you're chalking it, and it would give them the ability to wharf out and have a dock.
Yeah, this is what the
Could-
DEC approved,
Mayor?
and this is what the only thing they
And
said
we
they
have-
would approve.
Could it be moved to the south and then pushed out a little farther?
The water is not better.
It's not.
It gets shallower further south you go.
I don't understand it. I mean, there's tons of data points there, and that's the best that we can do.
Chip?
That distance
Yeah.
from
I
it.
mean, there's a big stone flat in the middle of the
Good.
place there.
I
So
was
you're
wondering-
right on the perimeter where you're gonna go
That's okay with me.
further south, and you're gonna just have stone on the
I
bottom.
just don't
Periods.
understand why it's gotta take that angle.
What do you mean?
You know, it's almost like forcing it right to the edge of that 10-foot, 15-foot on the edge of the property line.
Because that's where the deeper water is. If you, I mean, I know it's hard to see, but if you shift the whole dock towards the south, the water gets more shallow. And we're barely,
How much more shallow?
A few inches.
Mm.
And you couldn't have the float.
So it's gonna be
go
chalked
out
anyway,
the
so a
channel
few
any farther?
inches.
Straight.
Yeah, but the
Yeah.
furthest,
then
it goes
extends
from
too
mud
far
bottom
into the channel.
to
Two.
muddy bottom to where it had previously been dredged. To the south, it's all rock and cobble there. When you start going,
So in other words, you don't want a prop dredge.
stones.
rock and stone.
No. It's probably the only place you could
Put something.
feasibly put
I've
something.
spent a lot of time staring at these numbers and playing with it. I've probably designed this about 10 times, trying to move it around and rearrange it. This is the only way that it works. And just here.
Gotcha. As long as it's chalked and doesn't say, I mean, there's no submerged aquatic vegetation in there, so you're not going to be sitting on that. And chalking it will give you the ability.
What's it got to do with pie? That's what I want to know.
There's no pie in that.
No pie in that one.
Scott. I'm good with it.
It's getting close to lunch.
I'll
Yeah.
bring you a pie.
Okay. Advance.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right. So let's see. That's it for you. And then we've got Alfred and William Baldwin at 45 Cedar Crest Road, Southampton. Okay. We were having separation anxiety from you.
Yes, you guys.
I know.
What's going on?
Got to,
Okay, let's see. Okay, so what happened here was this. I got my approvals, and during the process, I went out to bid, and some bridge builders, dock builders, told me that, we would like to beef up some of the wood and from 2x6s to 2x8s, and the bolts, they wanted a little different arrangement. So I went back to my engineer, and we did the plans
okay.
to accommodate that. In the meantime, there was a couple typos on the approved form. So what I did is I corrected the typos and resubmitted them.
Okay.
So that's what so the dimensions of the dock and bridge stay exactly the same.
Okay.
The length and everything. It's just that we needed to clear up the form.
So we changing the plan a little bit to beef it up, change some bolts, but it's still, you got engineered stamp plans that match
Engineered
everything.
stamp-
So then there should be no issue here,
Yeah.
right?
I actually got a bill, and I actually have a check sitting on the desk. Would it be possible for them to approve this afternoon at the regular meeting and cash the check?
I don't know if we have that ability to do that.
Did you prepare the resolution, Charlotte?
We don't have a reso, so it'll go on for the 4th.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It'll go on for the 4th.
Okay,
Is that all right?
that's fine.
All right, so advance it for resolution the 4th.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Got it.
have a great one. Okay, let's see, now we've concluded that, right? So now we're moving on to the general permit applications for determination. Final stamp plan review, we have Overview X, or Overview 10 LLC, 16 Ocean View Drive. You leaving? Okay.
So we have stamp plans and everything. Everything's good to go, so let's move it ahead.
All right, we'll advance that one. Fish trap pike applications for determination, trustee Marin.
Yeah, this was something I just wanted to discuss with the board and Joe Lombardo, if Joe could come up here. Well, Mark and I quickly discussed this. Basically, the language that I want to build into these fike permits is that there will be no fikes put in during hunting season.
Which I talked to
Okay.
the applicant and he's perfectly fine with
Okay,
it.
so the language of it, we just have to I want to really dial in of how that's, because sometimes hunting seasons change.
The dates,
The
so
dates
it would be
change,
the
so
first day of, I don't know what, New York State, because I know they have different hunting seasons for
Yeah.
different types of,
yeah, they have like the open,
Ducks,
the
open
goose
day-
season.
open
That's
day.
like the early goose season
Yeah.
they have, and sometimes that's in, sometimes
Yeah.
that's out, sometimes that's moved around.
Yep.
But
So basically what you wanted is it can't be installed during any waterfowl season.
waterfowl season, yeah.
I know Aaron is quite the waterfowler, so.
and it's just it was I discussed it a little bit with Bill Robinson because two of these sites are kind of directly near him, and I'm just worried about the dogs. You know, you get a flyaway, and then he's got his dogs trying to retrieve the duck, and then it gets tangled up in a fight that's right by him. You know, like that's
Yeah, they have
that's a
collars
mess.
on them and everything. and
No
it's-
problem.
Yeah, in the winter in January.
The applicant did ask for Mr. Robinson's phone number. He'd like to call him and have a discussion when he puts the nets in, because evidently Mr. Robinson has a floater. He's gonna need to put the floater in and situate it before hunting season, so he would like to have a conversation, make sure that everything goes
I would
smoothly.
speak to Mr. Robinson.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I will talk
Connect
directly
you.
with Bill Robinson and then see, get those two guys. to
Connect
connect.
you.
All right, and I'll put
Good.
the
Language.
language to the effect that the installation has to occur prior to waterfall. Okay?
Yep.
We can do that.
But he can install it and remove it, you know, because fikes are pretty easy to take in and out.
Yeah.
As long as it's not in during hunting season.
No problem, we can do this.
And then we're gonna have to be clear on letting the Marine Patrol know what's going on with this, so that the enforcement works
Right.
properly and we
Well,
have public safety.
they've already been in conversation, so they all know what's going on down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know we've had problems in the past between hunters and fikes, and
Yes.
I'm just trying to
Yeah.
stop that.
Okay, I think we're
This
good.
is gonna be a special condition on
You're
the
good?
permit and the resolution.
We'll put that in, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, so
Just
you,
let me review the reso before we do it.
I have one in
So-
draft. I
so
can
so
show
you
it
want
to
to, it's okay to advance?
Advance it, please.
Okay, good?
Yeah.
Okay, advance it. Okay, so that concludes the agenda. Now we have an executive session for confidential legal advice. We've had a lot of discussion today, so if there's no objection, I will make a motion to adjourn, go into,
Second.
seconded by trustee Warner to go into executive. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, have a nice day, everyone. We'll see you this afternoon. I gotta stretch my legs.